My most recent research is all about how dementia and specifically how Alzheimer's disease is explored in contemporary life writing and literature and television and film. And I've been interested in looking not simply at horrified reactions to dementia, but at the ways in which people use Alzheimer's as a kind of idea to explore a whole range of problems around care, around love, around how families operate, around what it means to be a person, around what the limits of kind of meaningful life are. So I've been looking at literature as something that allows us to think differently about dementia and not simply reproduce just a kind of horrified response to it as an unmitigated tragedy. There's lots of literature and there's lots of popular literature, particularly things like detective fiction, that uses Alzheimer's as a narrative device, right? Which uses it because it's very convenient to have a forgetful character. In terms of suspense, in terms of how you actually unfold a narrative. So there's loads and loads and loads of literature that does that, that looks at dementia or looks at autism, for instance. Looks at cognitive disability in that way as a kind of narrative device, but I've been interested in looking at it in a much wider sense, not simply as a narrative device. In fact, I've chosen to look at people who use it to explore things like family relationships, things of sort of questions of identity, of how you interact, of what love means. I think it's used a lot to explore what it means to love someone, and it enables people to explore that in a kind of very extreme set of situations. My research at the moment emerged out of my PhD project, which was about the relationship between literary discourse and science, and particularly the ways in which literature is used in the process of popularising science and bringing scientific ideas to a much wider audience. But what I was particularly interested in was the popularisation of and the kind of making public of sex and sexuality in the 1920s. So I looked at the work of Mary Stopes, who wrote the first best-selling sex manual, Married Love, and I looked at the ways in which she used literature to explore and to validate sex, and to say that sex was okay as long as it was cultured sex, and really to differentiate between the ways in which working class people did it and middle class people did it. And I think that's what's interesting is that Stopes is a kind of differentiation between sort of cultured practices and working class people as sort of people who just did it without any sense of discernment, still permeates a lot of the ways in which we think and write about and represent sex.